welcome back to my channel. Welcome if you're new. This is the Spy Flight over on YouTube, and wow, do we have an amazing new airplane available for Microsoft Flight Simulator. It's this one right here, the iniBuilds A350, and it's all dressed up in a brand new livery celebrating the 100th birthday of Delta Airlines. And this one just rolled out. In fact, the day that I'm recording this video, it is basically, I think it was their birthday yesterday. Hello, and as I said, welcome back to the channel. Welcome if you're new. My name is Dave. I do the Spy Flights over on Twitch, and hopefully soon here on YouTube as well, now that multi-streaming's cool. But this is also the Cold and Dark series. This is where I try and go and do a complete flight, show you all the buttons that I'm working on here in Flight Simulator to show you how I'm getting the increasingly complex airplanes up in the air, down on the ground again, and not having pixels scattered all over the runway. Let's see. I'll mention I do have a private pilot's license, so I can fly little baby airplanes, not one of the big planes. If I want to do anything like, like this, I've got to go and buy a ticket, and they always make me sit in the back. But this is an amazing airplane. There's some really good online resources now, including some tutorials that are popping up here on YouTube. Also, iniBuilds has gone and put together some nice things too. So what are we going to attempt to do today? Well, let's see. I've got a flight plan that I put together by SimBrief. I've also used digital ATIS. I used FS add-on compare to find a payware airport, and we'll be using WinWing's new flight control unit and EFIS system. The airports, we're using Atlanta Hartsfield default airport today. Also, we're going to be using the payware airport from Flightbeam for Washington, Dulles. The flight plan today is Atlanta Hartsfield to Washington Dulles using the Airbus A350, and you can get that 100-year birthday livery. It's free over at flightsim.to. Our flight plan today takes us off of runway 09 left, just like they're using in the real world today, and we've got a nice little flight up to Dulles landing on runway 01 center. Our block fuel should be about 15,000 tons, and it looks like about 145 of flying time. 319 simulated passengers have agreed to join us on today's Spy Flight. So let's hop on in and get started with how this thing kind of works here. I've been taking a bunch of notes based on flying this for, 2 or 3, maybe about a week or so now. I've also watched a couple of online videos and read through an FCOM, a real-world flight manual for this airplane, and so maybe that'll help us out just a little bit too. So let's go ahead and hop on into the airplane and go and get things started. First things first, well, you can see the jetway. It's a little far away from the airplane. So what can we do about that? One of the add-ons that I really like to use is something called Pushback Helper. And here's Pushback Helper right here. And Pushback Helper has some really cool things, including a jetway button. Just click the jetway button and you can exit out of Pushback Helper. One of the things that I'd kind of like to see is if iniBuilds is going to be doing some things, add a jetway button over where you turn on the ground power and also turn on and off the chocks and stuff. But as you can see, we now have our jetway firmly in place, and so we can now walk down the jetway and hop into the best seat in the house. This really is one of those fabulous new cockpits. I don't know if this is the official term or not. I refer to this as the Airbus third generation cockpit. First generation, the Airbus A300, A310, second generation, A319, 20, 21, kind of the A330 and A340 in there too. And now we've got this fourth generation cockpit, which is really, really nice. So let's go ahead and jump on in. Because we have all of our advanced new USB controllers, one of the things I suggest you do in Flight Sim is what the real pilots do. Go ahead and move your controls around. Make sure that your side stick works. Make sure that your rudder pedals work. Go ahead and check your throttles. Make sure they're down. Make sure that your levers are in the correct place, including the gear lever. That's what the real pilots like to do, and they also like to go ahead and make sure that the parking brake is on. Those are just the things that they do. Real pilots also are going to go and check the wipers. Make sure that the wipers are off before you go and turn on the airplane. Okay, and so there you go. That's the preliminary inspection on that. Batteries. So batteries are up here at the top, And batteries, you basically go left to right to turn it on. Battery 1, battery 2, battery 3, and battery 4. Lights are going to start flashing here in our simulated cockpit. And then for ground power, you go the opposite way. External power 2, external power 1. And now the airplane starts making all sorts of cool, interesting noises there too. So we go ahead and get those things going right off the bat. We'll wait and see that the airplane is all ready to go. It's going to do some safety tests on the systems, and those sometimes take up to 30 seconds. It's a little bit faster in this airplane, and just, I mean, all the data that's available to you here really does just blow me away. Next thing that I've seen people go and do is almost immediately, they're coming on up here, and we're going to go and hit IR, the ADIR system. So IR number 1, IR number 2, and IR number 3. Is what we're going to do there. Next, how about going and adjusting the cockpit lights? So lighting in the cockpit's down here, and it's a little bit bright at the moment because of the sun shining in, but integrated lighting, I usually am going to turn this down to about half. Flood lighting, I'm going to turn up about a quarter, and the same thing with the dome lighting. And so those are just the settings that I will go and start with. While I'm here, I'm also just going to take a look at my brake accumulator pressure and make sure that everything's working. The accumulator refill button, if it's low, especially here on the green side, you can click that one, and the accumulator button, it'll pump up the brakes for you and get those going. Okay, so we got those going there. Next thing, let's go to the OIS. This is the electronic flight bag. What replaced the iPads in some other airplanes. And the first thing we're going to do is go to flight ops status, and we're going to import our flight plan from SimBrief, which I've already set up as Delta Flight 441, Hotlanta to Washington Dulles as Delta Flight 441. The next thing I'm going to do is go to the ground page. You can see we've got a door already open. Chocks and the GPU are in place. I'm going to come over here and just open some cargo doors. You don't have to do that. That is something that's going to be completely optional, but opening up the cargo doors gives you a little more of that immersion feeling. So, why not? And we got those in there too. Next thing I'll do is come over here and I'm going to check the operational flight plan. This is the flight plan that I have downloaded from SimBrief. Didn't download. The airplane went out to SimBrief and got it. So Delta 441, that looks pretty good. Atlanta to Dulles. Let's talk about some options here real fast. There's a few things that I've got set up. First thing, you want to go to the options page and hit the third party button. Now I've got streamer mode on here, so basically it doesn't show you, but you need to enter your SimBrief ID, and that's the number, not the name, and then Hoppy ACARS. Hoppy.nl is where you get a free Hoppy ACARS log on, and so go and grab that too for some of the functions you're seeing me use today. Also, I've switched my nav data from Sim Default to Navigraph, and I've hit update on that too. Beyond that, here in the simulation, I've really just left everything here pretty much alone. I've kind of done this, just leaving this at default right now. I've left my IRS align time as real. I have not linked my instruments. Rudder controls the tiller. Now I've got my own tiller. Auto tiller disconnect. No, I don't want the auto stuff either. And there we go. OIS settings. I've left the auto EFB brightness off. Charts are Navigraph. I've got my charts set to day and night, and my weights are kilos. It's an Airbus. I'm sure that there's some airlines in the West that fly it in pounds. It's an Airbus. I'm going to fly it in kilos. Next thing I'm going to do is head on over here, and I'm going to go to my terminal charts page. And we're going to go to Atlanta, and I'm going to stack my charts. And this is really easy. It doesn't take too much time. The first thing I usually do is pin the parking gates chart in, and then I'm going to pin the airport and airport data chart in. So those are there, and those are going to appear. I'm trying to make a stack of charts top to bottom. On the operational flight plan over here on routing, you can see we're using the Jack 2 departure. So over here on departures, let's go ahead and we need to get the Jack 2 departure. While I'm pinning the Jack 2 departure, I'm going to go over here and just take a look and see if there is a top altitude. Your top altitude, and make sure that that's in there. And it is 10,000 feet. So just a couple things, and I love stacking my own charts because it gives me a chance to look these things over. Now that we've got those, let's go up to Dulles. And Washington, Dulles, back to the operational flight plan. We are planning the Cavalier 6 arrival. So back to charts and back to arrivals, and it's the Cavalier 6 arrival. I'm going to pin that. I've already checked Digital ATIS online to see what runways they're using, and I know that they are using runway 1 center right now at Real World Dulles for arrivals, so I'm going to pin that ILS. If the ATIS had been saying they were using 2 or 3 runways, I would pin the runways in order of how it is that I would like to use them. And then I'm going to go back to the airport. I'm going to do airport info, and I'm going to do parking gates. Now, there's a little pin mark down here. I'm going to pin this, and you see there's my stack of charts. I've got gates, airport, departure, arrival, ILS runways in use, airport for landing. It's all in the order that I need it. And wow, is that nice. Now we'll come on over to the en route page, and it always leaves me on the standard page. I usually like to keep this on the IFR low nighttime page. And it's already got us set up here at the gate, so that's nice to have too. Finally, I'm going to go to the load sheet and just leave it there for a second, because we need to go down to the flight management computer, the McDo. I think they call this flight management now, and it really is pretty amazing. And it's already telling us, hey, you need to align the IRS. Hey, we turned that on, so we're good. Checking my nav database here. It's good for our flight, 20 February to 19 March. We're flying an A350-900 with Trent XWB-84 engines, and we're good to go there. After that, the next thing I'm going to do is come down, and we're going to hit the init button, and we're going to come up here and do a company flight plan request. Yeah, we're diving right into this flight here. So while that's going on, let's come on up here, and let's do some lights. So it's the default right now leaves a couple switches on here. The strobes, it's left to auto. Nav light, it sets to 1, and the logo light is set to auto. My guess is cold and dark, all of these should be off, but maybe they leave those on. But what I'll do is go and use nav and logo light system number 1. Apparently that's the primary system, and if you use number 2 for whatever reason, that's going to go and fire off some sort of an alert or something. I don't know, but that could be a problem. Next thing I'm going to do is come down over here, and we're going to do no smoking to auto and emergency exit lights to arm. And if you kind of come back into the cabin, let's look over here and see what's up. Hey, look at that, the no smoking light's on. This is our nice little first class cabin here. Looks pretty good. Okay, back to the fun stuff. So as this is all coming up, it says now that it's received our company flight plan. So click it and hit insert. And it's going to take a second. So if you have your nice in-flight beverage, a sip of coffee. And now we're going to check it out. Delta Flight 441, hot Atlanta to Dulles. Company route is hot Atlanta to Dulles, flight level 410. Cost index is 46. Guess what? If you look over on the operational flight plan, you'll see our cost index is 46. I'll take a look at some numbers like that and make sure that they're the same. And all of that looks really good too. So we're good to go there. We'll look at the IRS page at the moment. And the IRSs say, hey, things are going to be IRSs are updated in a minute. In fact, the nav accuracy has been upgraded. Air operations, AOC, air operations control is uplinked. Our route's uplinked, and our nav primary is set too. So that looks really, really good right now. And let's see, we've cleared all of these. We've cleared the status page. Now, one of the other things that the real pilots are going to do is they're going to come down to the radio panel, and they're going to put the guard frequency up. They're going to put the ground frequencies in and start monitoring them. So over here on the terminal chart, if we go to the Atlanta airport, nope, not the gates, the airport chart, that's going to be one of the tower frequencies. And we've got several tower frequencies here. 119.1, I think, is the CTAF frequency if you were on VATSIM. So we would come down here perhaps and go 119,100. Make that active. Turn on the VHF1 and turn that up and turn up the volume. I'm not on VATSIM for this flight, and I just cleared those two little memos there. I'm not on VATSIM for today's flight, but that would be one of the things that you would also start doing at this point in time. Okay, we've got all of that taken care of. You might also adjust that loudspeaker level that you see over there. I've never known this to work in an airplane. Maybe it does in this, but that's already good to go there. Now we're going to go up here and do the fire test. And the upgrade for this airplane on the fire for engine and APU and engine 2 is now there's just one button, not three. So what you do, and to do this test, you've got your mouse, right? So comfortably put your hand on your mouse and have your other hand ready to punch a couple of the quick view buttons that you might have set up to look around the cockpit while we're doing this. So go to the mouse, and I'm going to press and hold fire. And all the lights are on. It starts making noise. Let's look down here at the main captain view, and you see the main captain view has got the master warning is on. You can also see that in the main view over here, engine 1, 2 fire, also landing gear bay fire too. And then we'll look down here, and you can see there's lights on the starts. It's a little noisy, but it's supposed to be. After that, release the mouse key, and you've done the fire check. So I hope you're all fired up about that. Now that we've done that, and yes, that would be our first stupid joke. Come on down here, master switch for the APU, and you can immediately turn on the start button. The airplane is a smart airplane, so it's set up so that you can go and turn them both on, just blam blam, and you can come down here and monitor the APU start if you choose to. So now with the APU starting on up, I'm going to start doing a few things that I usually do in the cockpit. The crew supply of oxygen, I probably am not turning this on at the right time. I usually like to turn that light out after I've gone up here and started aligning the ADIRs. That's my little cue when I'm in my standard upper panel view that we've already gone and set that up, that I've already turned those on. If that light's out, it's sort of like, okay, I've aligned the IRSs. The next thing that we're going to do is come over to the co-pilot side, and I'm going to hit the ATC COM menu, and we're going to come over here to Digital ATIS. And if you've got Hoppy A cars, this is when this gets really awesome. I'm going to go down, and I'm just going to go and hit a send and request. It's going to give you two kinds of data. If VATSIM is up and there you have an ATIS, it will give you departure and arrival ATIS. If not, it will get you just the METAR. So we just want the METAR, and there's our METAR for Atlanta. I'm going to do the same thing now for Dulles. I'm going to get those two METARs in there just right now, get them all taken care of so that we can see those, and there they are. And our altimeter right now at Atlanta is 30.23. So we're going to come over here and let's see. I haven't got it set up yet. Hang on. Didn't plan ahead. Okay, let's see if my desktop camera works. Yeah, there we go. So we're going to come over here. That is the WinWing flight control unit. It's really nice. Let's see. I'm going to slide this one just over here and try and keep all the cameras off to the side. So the first thing we'll do is we're going to switch the from hectopascals to inches of mercury. And in all of that, I forgot my altimeter setting. Our altimeter is 3023. Don't worry, we're going to update them. So 3023 over on the captain's side. And because I have a left and right EFIS, we're going to do the same thing over on the co-pilot side. 3023. There we go. That looks good. And now there is the little backup instrument down here. I think it's called the ISIS. And you see it's in hectopascals. How do you get rid of it? Hit the menu button and use the dial. So instead of speed bug 1, 2, alternate bug, display meters, set baro unit, I'm going to select it. Use the dial again to go inches of mercury. select it, and turn the menu off. And now we can go and set the backup instrument. And I think you have to do that every time, but that's okay. 3023. And now our altimeters are set. And by now, the APU is up and running, so we're going to turn on the APU bleed, and more blowers are going to start. And while we're doing that, we're going to then disconnect external power source 1. We only need external power source 2 if we're going to have the APU up there. Okay, so we're good to go there. And you can see our doors are open and everything's really good to go there, so that looks nice. Okay, let's go ahead and do some more setup here. We're going to come over to the load sheet, and let's go ahead and SimBrief import. There's our SimBrief import, and you can see the fuel load is 15003. Just go to the operational flight plan, come over here, and check your block fuel. 15003, that's good. So the load sheet is at that point correct, and so I'm going to go ahead and hit set fuel. And it says loading fuel, please wait, and loading fuel is complete. Now I'm going to set my zero fuel weight. And you saw the airplane bump a little bit, and now passengers are showing up. The airplane is now essentially loaded with baggage and cargo and everything, so the airplane is pretty well loaded. Now we get to come back over here to the flight management computer and continue our initialization. So I'm going to return up digital ATIS received and received stations. So basically it told us that that those guys have shown up. I'm going to hit the return button, and now let's go ahead and do our departure. Now, I'm obviously getting gray hair now, so memory isn't always good. There's a cool little button here. It's the Captain OIS on center, and there's the OIS. You can go over and look at the operational flight plan, hit routing, and see that, we're departing off of 9 left and the Jack 2 departure. Turn it off, 9 left, select, and we're going to do the Jack 2 departure, select. There's a transition. I forgot. Well, there's only one, but if you forget, hit the OIS button and see, it's Kellen. I'm going to select Kellen, and we're going to hit the temporary flight plan button, and there it is, and I'm going to insert it. And then maybe the real pilots, they're going to take a little bit of time just to make sure that that's correct. And that's all the way down to Doran, and Doran was also a part of the flight plan too. So now that we've got that, let's go and do Dulles. And I forgot what we're going to do at Dulles. Easy. It's one center. Now it might change, but the real pilots are going to put a complete flight plan in, and if they have to, they'll change it en route. So it's going to be the one center via the Cavalier 6 and Doran. So we're going to land on runway 1 center. It's going to be an ILS approach. We're going to be on the Cavalier 6. We're going to come in via Doran and the VIA. Oh my gosh, what do we do here? Let's come back over here and let's go to the terminal chart, and let's just take a look at the Cavalier 6. And Cavalier 6, basically we're going to come in and it's going to be Mixon and then to 1 Charlie. Here's 1 Charlie. We're doing the other one. We're landing north. Whoops. I'll remember. We're not doing Mixon. It's 1 Charlie. So that means at Cavalier, then there's Coins. Yeah, so after Cavalier, it's 1 left, center, and right. And here's transitions over here. Cavalier. Okay, so it's UVAA to... What do we have here? Do we have anything else? No. So we could do Mudcube, Mr. TZ, Mocker, Mayor, Modal, Move. Okay, so we have some options here. It's not going to be one of those, complete connections between the SID and the star and the arrival. So with that in mind, let's see, what are our options? Well, we got all sorts of them here. Mats, Mayor, Huff, Mud, How about, I think they would like you to choose the one that's furthest away. So let's go and get Muddo. And so all of that is good. Temporary flight plan and insert. And we're back at the top, so we can go down and just have a quick look. There is going to be a route discontinuity between UVAA and Muddo. I'm going to leave that in there for now. It's good to have those in there when you've got a manual in there. You don't want to clear all of those. So all of that's good, and that should take us on in. There's our basic flight plan. Let's hit the init page again. And nav aids, we're really not going to use any special VORs or nav aids or anything like that. I believe it's already loaded the ILS for our departure runway if we have to come back to the airport for an engine failure or something. That's actually pretty amazing. Fuel and load. Oh my gosh, look at all these numbers. So let's come back over here, and we're going to go to the load sheet, and our zero fuel weight is 173.176. So over here, here's a really, really cool trick. Ready? So 173.1, right? Hit the zero fuel weight, hit the left control button on your computer keyboard, and now you can type it in. 173.1. Enter. Did I do that right? Sometimes I forget. 173.1. Yep, that was cool. And if you've got announcements in, you can hear they're starting to make announcements when you put in the zero fuel weight. Zero fuel weight center of gravity, same drill. Zero fuel weight center of gravity is 25.9. 25.9. Enter. Block fuel. Well, block fuel, I'm going to take it right off of the gas gauge here. 1500. The real pilots are also, before they enter this, they're going to come down and they're going to push the fuel button here, and they're going to go and look and see, is the fuel correct here? They'll do the math. They'll make sure it's balanced at that point. Make sure, it's going to be a little less over on this side because we're running the APU, but it's not that big of a deal. So we'll come down here and turn that off again. And so the gas gauge says 15.0. So same drill. Let's do block fuel. Control 15.0 and enter. Next is passengers. Passengers are over here. 319 passengers aboard. So 319 goes up here. 319 and enter. After you do that, the computer's going to do a little bit of math here and start putting some numbers in for you. But I usually go and start putting some numbers in here. So for taxi fuel, that's going to be on the operational flight plan, and we're going to go to summary and fuel. And taxi fuel is right down here. So taxi fuel says 0.374. So let's go ahead and pop that in over here for taxi. 0.374. And so that's going to put in our taxi fuel. Route reserve, that's going to be our 15 minutes, and that's 1.43. So let's go and do 1.43 and enter. Entry out of range. 1.43. Nope, that's out of range. I'm not hitting the point button. Enter. 1.43. I'm typing too fast. Okay, so alternate set to 3.1. Our alternate is actually to go to Baltimore, 2.6. So let's go 2.69. I usually give it 3 numbers and let it do its own rounding. And for 30 minutes of fuel, final reserve, it says 2.2. The flight plan says 2.2. We'll just leave that there. And if you look, it shows that I have an extra 15 minutes on top of everything, which is what I boarded when I did my flight plan. If you look over here, I think I can zoom in a little bit better on this one. So if you look at my flight plan, I have included here for ATC, 15 minutes of extra fuel. That's my extra 15 minutes. I call that VATSIM fuel because, you know, VATSIM means delays sometimes. Okay, so all of those look really pretty good at the moment. And that looks fairly nice. Let's go ahead and return after that. Now there's several other things that you can do in this. I'm blowing off a few things that I've been learning about just to keep things going. Let's come on down here to takeoff performance. All of those numbers are blank. So we can go to the OIS again and do takeoff performance. Now the real pilots are going to check these numbers before they even start doing this to just check the math. So you could do a sync with Simbri flight plan and check the math and the weather and make sure that you're not going to be overweight for takeoff or overweight for landing. But I'm going to go ahead and just sync this right now. I'm going to sync the weather. And I'm going to just compute and send it to the FMS. I'm not doing this to show you literally every button that you're supposed to press on this. I'm basically showing you how it is that I'm using it as a flight simmer right now to get you up off the ground and down back on the ground and then, you know, be able to build on that basic knowledge. Now we've got to confirm speeds, and there's our speeds all confirmed, and that looks really good too. Return. Now that this is all done, I want to do a company wind request. And this is going to go and receive our company winds, and I'm going to insert that. And that looks good too. All of this is looking good. Our passengers are aboard. So all of this is now pretty well set. We did have an initial climb clearance of 10,000 feet. So let's put 10,000 feet in the flight control unit. That looks pretty good too. I think it's time to start getting ready to go. So go to ground. I'm going to go and I'm going to close my cargo doors now. While the cargo doors are closing, we're on the APU. I'm going to go ahead and disconnect ground power. And when I disconnect my ground power, that's my cue to go and turn on my fuel pumps. And on this place, you turn them on left to right, turn them off right to left. So now we're exclusively on the APU. I'm going to disconnect ground power. My main door and the jetway are still closed. I'll show you that in a second. I'm going to look down here, and I'm going to see that my parking brake is on. I'm also going to look over here and see if the parking brake indicator is on down here too. And with that, I'm going to pull the chocks. And at this point, I'm going to come over here and do a checklist. So checklists before start. Gear pins and covers are aboard. Fuel quantity, we've checked that. Takeoff data is aboard. Barrel references are set. Seat belts are not on yet. So we got to do seat belts and stuff like that. Well, passengers are aboard. Let's get ready to close the doors. So seat belts going on. I'm going to also ask them to turn off their mobile phones and stow their laptops. And now if we come back into the cabin, you can see that no smoking, seat belts, phones off, and put away your electronic devices for takeoff. Okay, so that's good. Last step, I'm going to hit surveillance on the captain's side. I'm going to put in a squawk code. 2000 is good. I'm going to go and start squawking mode Charlie on taxiways. I'm going to leave TCAS off for now. And come on back over here to the performance page. And now we've got seat belts on, ADIRS nav is good, and we're good to the line. I think that Airbus in the real world in the modern day has stopped doing the checklist to the line, but they're including to the lines here now. So now it's time to get ready to go. And if we look outside, you can see cargo's closed, ground power's gone. We still have our jetway in place. So with the jetway still in place, it's time to go and call the pushback truck. And I'm doing this as a time saver. So you can see over here, I've got a pushback truck there. I'm going to hit the tug button over here. And with that, that's going to go, and it's closing our main door, and it's retracting our jetway. Just a way for things to stay. I'm reducing workload to do it that way. So that's why I do that. And if we look down here, you can see, aha, our doors are closed. So now with that, Let's go ahead and say doors are closed. Parking brake is on. And now let's go ahead and do the beacon. Beacon's going on. And we're ready for push and start. And if you take a look down here, you can see that checklist is now complete. The before start check is complete. Okay? At this point, depending upon how long I've been on the ground, I might go and update an ATIS and see if there's anything new. And if we were on VATSIM, we'd request push and start and all those groovy things, but we're not doing that. So let's go ahead and push. Parking brakes are going to go off. Parking brakes are off. Let's see, which way do we want to push here? Over here on the airport. So welcome to Atlanta. We are departing off of 9 left, so we're going to push with our tail to the north. You'll also see that over here. So ready to go? Parking brake is off. And let's go ahead and start the push. There we go.
Welcome on board this Airbus A350 aircraft.
The airplane does come with some announcements, so you've got those too.
Pay close attention to this important safety briefing.
A very important safety briefing. I shouldn't mock them. It is an important safety briefing, and even if you're a frequent flyer, always pay attention. It could change, and even if it hasn't changed, it's just being nice to the flight crew that's doing their job. Okay, let's go ahead, and I'm going to swing the tail over to the left. Our engines are past the equipment and crew line, so let's go ahead and start up some engines. Okay, engine starter goes to ignition start. Come over here. We're going to make sure that the numbers turn on, and I believe you're supposed to wait about 10 seconds or so after all of those things turn on before you actually start engine number 1. That's about 10 seconds. Engine number 1 starts. Here's our nice little pushback. And I'm going to go and straighten out the nose wheel. And it's actually stopped me here. So sometimes I'm using pushback helper. It just stops you if you push back correctly. So parking brake on, and then it releases the tug automatically for you too. So that's a little bit of a time saver for you. And engine number 1 is starting. While engine number 1 starts, we should also keep an eye on oil. And if we were good pilots, we should have checked our oil quantities and our hydraulics. There is a place to do that. I think you go to flight ops and maintenance. Oh, wow, my hydraulics are down a little bit. So you probably have to go and service the hydraulics and service the brakes and do the engine oil every now and then. We're probably good to go for this flight, but I need to go and do that and check this page and make sure that all is right with the world. Okay, we have a nice pushback there. Let's go ahead and engine start there. Starting engine number 2. Engine number 2 starts. I'm using the Thrustmaster TCA Airbus Captain's Pack, so the start levers on that work with this airplane great. The throttles work great, the speed brakes and the flaps work great, and the gear handle. For a side stick right now, I'm using the WinWing side stick that looks like an Airbus side stick, and wow, have I been happy with that too. Engines are continuing to start up here. And I had a takeoff time. We were supposed to push back at 15:35 Zulu. We're about 5 minutes late. Not a problem. We'll be just fine. And you're not going to have to sit here and watch the whole flight. Usually after takeoff, when we got everything set up, I usually pause the video and then start the video again when we're about 150 miles from top of descent. And that's how that works. And we've got a good start on engine number 2. So the starter can go back to normal. And back to the instruments. That looks good. We're done with the APU bleed. We're done with the APU. Unless, of course, we needed it for some other reason. And now let's go ahead and do our control checks. So first thing I'm going to do is hit the pedal disconnect. I don't know if this is working 100% yet, but we've got that, and let's go and do our control settings. control checks. So grab the side stick. There's our flight controls. Elevators all the way down. Release all the way up. Release. Make sure it goes back to center. Ailerons all the way to the left. Release all the way to the right. Release. It goes back to the center. Rudder all the way to the right, all the way to the left, and that looks like it's pretty good too. Flaps for takeoff. Our flaps are going to be flaps 1 plus F, so flaps 1. Flaps are going down. Speed brakes are armed, and auto brakes are set. There we go. And now we'll do a checklist. Checklist menu, after start checklist. Anti-ice, do we need it? It's 8 degrees outside, not a lot of clouds, not a lot of moisture. We'll go without anti-ice for the departure, but our after start checks are good. We've got a salute and release from guidance. Now you can also go ahead, I've left this in plan mode. If you dial this in, and it will load an airport map and put it right in front of you. I also have a bigger airport map over here. So that's kind of the way I do this. So I usually don't use the airport map in here, although it is cool that it's in there. I'm just not using that for the moment. And you can zoom it in and it's great. But I'm going to go ahead and zoom my map back out. And I'm going to go ahead and leave it at 20 miles. And we're going to go and turn on ARC mode. I'm going to turn on constraints, airports, and traffic. And let's go. Taxi. I'm going to go taxi, nose light to taxi. I'm going to come up here and hit an all call for the cabin crew. And it's a very light cabin call, but you do hear it. Parking brakes are off, tow brakes are on, and out we go. And if we look outside, you'll see that the airplane does start to roll on itself, so it does have a thrust idle taxi. And it's going nice and slow. Before we turned off the parking brakes, the real pilots are going to go and figure out where they're going to go. And so what we're going to do is come out here, we're going to get on Lima and go down to runway 9 left, okay? So we're good to go there. I usually leave it over here. We've got a nice announcement going on. We need to come over here. For a nose wheel tiller, one of the things is most side sticks, if you've got rudder pedals, most side sticks and stuff, you can twist the stick and that's supposed to be your rudder. I usually use that as my nose wheel tiller. One of the viewers over on the Spy Flight on Twitch has sent me a USB tiller like this. It hasn't arrived yet. I think it actually arrives today or tomorrow. And it looks like it's really going to be fun to use. There's some incredible things that are coming available. Okay, here comes our turnaround here. It's a bigger jet, so you're going to definitely want to, over control a little bit, go a little bit beyond the taxi line so you don't cut across the taxi. And that was a little bit of a jerky turn, but it worked. And we'll just kind of let this go down here. We got a nice long taxi, so we could go ahead and do another checklist before takeoff checklist. All right, flight controls were checked. Flight instruments are set. The briefing was done, but poorly. V1, VR, V2, those were all set. The squawk is set too. One thing about your trim. So on the trim setting, you ought to come and, as it says, did you set V1, rotate, V2, check your auto trim, and that says 30.4, it's set to 30.3. It can be off by 1%, but it automatically is going to set your trim for you. Takeoff runway, we've confirmed our takeoff runway. The cabin crew has been advised of takeoff. Packs are going to be on, and that checklist is complete as well too. There we go. So before takeoff checks are good. Although The ECAM says, no, sport, you got one more to do. Takeoff config check. Takeoff config, press the takeoff config button. 1, 2, 3, and let's see. Hey, the ECAM checklist is now good too. And this is the default scenery for Atlanta. It's okay. It's good for a default scenery. Some of the jetways have a problem making it out to the airplane, though. That's a bit of a problem. I think somebody's making an Atlanta. I think somebody's also making a Dallas, which we really need to. There are a bunch of things that I did not do. Like one of the things you do down here is you do a secondary flight plan. In this airplane, it's pretty amazing. You can have 3 secondary flight plans. And thank you for flying Atlanta. Nice little sign goes by. Oh, we're going a little fast. We're going 31 knots. Holy moly. Sheriff Buford T. Justice is following us saying, no speeding there. Oh my gosh. I think 20 knots is okay on a straightaway like that. 30 if you're out in the boonies, like, you know, going to runway 8 at Denver or something. And we're pretty much all set and ready to go. ATC called and said line up and wait. So I'm going to turn my strobes on. And we'll go ahead and line up and wait for a second here. Should have looked over there before I made the turn. Make sure nobody's coming in to land. And around we go here. It's been mentioned over by real pilots and sim pilots that this airplane, when you're flying it with hands on the stick, is overly sensitive. I don't think I know enough to tell you if it is or if it isn't. The thing is we've got conflicting viewpoints from real world pilots over on, here on YouTube and other places too. What I have found is my control sensitivities are basically a straight line. I haven't changed anything. But what I've also found is I'm just doing really, really small movements on this. Baby little movements, hardly anything. And that's what works. Stuff like this, that's not working too terribly well. So that's the way I've been doing that. And it seems to be okay. It's been, like the story of my life, not great, not terrible, but it's working for me right now. So there you go. Let's go. Control tower says go. So throttles go up about halfway. And our engines are stable. Manual flex, SRS and runway is set. Auto thrust is blue, reading all those top lines there. And here we go. My hands are still on the throttles. The thing about flight simulators that I have a hard time with is reading the flight directors, though. There's 100 knots. I wish that a lot of these airplanes, they did. This one has one airspeed call out. I wish they had just a few more.
V1.
Go, hands off the throttles, rotate, and again, just a gentle pull back on the throttle. Positive rate, gear. There goes landing gear. And wow, that looks really pretty good. And out we go. Now, as you can see, I'm not climbing very fast. Up S. Flaps. Speed brakes disarmed. Speed's kind of coming up here. Let's go ahead and raise the nose a little bit. Up, lever climb. So now we're going to come in and do thrust climb. Thrust climb. And flying those guys. And again, just very small movements means I'm not over controlling this at all. And autopilot is going to go and engage. AP engage. Hands off the throttles. Feet off the rudder pedals. The airplane's got us. I'm going to bring the map out a click. Range change. That looks really good. ATC just called and said climb and maintain 15,000 feet. Yep. And that looks pretty good there. Flaps are up. Speed brakes are down. Landing gear lever is up. That's not so bad. Now we'll come over here and let's go ahead. They still have an occasional problem. I think the servers are getting a little bit slammed for the en route charts. But I do like to zoom these out just a little bit, if nothing, for no other reason, to kind of tell me, you know, what kind of towns we're coming up to see. That's one of the nice things about flight simming. Checklist, after takeoff checklist. Landing gear is up, flaps are up. Oh, haven't done the barrel reference yet. So we'll go back to performance. Passing 5,000 feet, all is right with the world. Oh, you know what I forgot to do? I forgot to be over here on surveillance, and we forgot to go to TARA. TCAS, T-A-R-A. And so we forgot to do that. Back to performance. And now you can see we should have we would have traffic right now if we were on VATSIM. And one of the really cool things is be sure and hit the ID button up here, because if you see other traffic, it's not just a little star on the map. It also includes that airplane's flight number. So you can see what airplanes are ahead of you, and that's kind of cool. And that looks really good. ATC has called and said climb to flight level 250. I'm going to make the map a touch bigger. And that's usually what I'll do, is I'll leave the map on the 80-mile range there. And it's all going very, very well. So far, so good. And there's our departure there. Coming up on the little Covington Airport. And then I'll keep zooming this out just a little bit more. I don't go really, really wide with these charts, but this airplane, by the way, has full CPDLC. So you can up 10,000 feet. So over here, we're going to come down and do landing light, turn off the nose light, and I'm going to come over here and I'm going to ring the all call. Let flight attendants know it's 10,000 feet. So CPDLC is absolutely awesome, especially if you're in, you know, some of the big VATSIM events like Frankfurt Friday, or even, you know, Munich is a big one. On Mondays, there is a really well-attended event in Copenhagen that's amazing too. Over here, if you go over to Connect, you can see you can connect, notify ATC for en route CPDLC. If you don't know that, that's text messaging between the airplane and air traffic control is a good way to put it. So you can go, and if we were there and we were flying across Germany, we would dial in, you know, where we're going, and then we would get instructions via text message. You can request a clearance, so you can request a departure or oceanic clearance to this. I mean, wow, I'm really kind of geeky about that sort of thing, because air traffic control frequencies are really kind of crowded, and this is a great way to reduce crowded conversations on ATC. It's really awesome. And all is right with the world here. Again, there are probably, I'm doing maybe, if I'm lucky, half of what it is that you're going to do with this airplane. Not even half of what the real pilots are going to do with this airplane. But it really is quite amazing what you can do and what you can learn with this airplane. So, coming up on 13,000 feet, the only other thing that we're going to do is at 18,000 feet, we're going to reset the altimeters to standard. We're going to go ahead, let's just continue the climb to flight level 410. It's a light day for us, so we'll go ahead and do 41,000 feet. We're not going to need to go back to Atlanta at the moment. This is a little bit soon, but one of the things I'll do is once I know I'm done with an airport, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to unpin the Atlanta stuff. So now I just have Cavalier, runway 1 center, and other runways if they were active, and then the airport and the parking gates, and I'd have those over there. And I might leave the Cavalier arrival in here as my active chart. And we can zoom this out a little bit, and I'll leave that as my active chart there. And then come back over to en route and do that. So we got that one in there as well. We've just passed 15,000 feet. Let's go ahead, and we're going to be nice to the passengers. If you look back here, you'll see passengers. All the signs are on. So let's come on up here. And I'm not sure that this is set up correct or I'm using it correctly, but I'm going to go ahead and turn the mobile thing off. That's going to go to off. And then I'm going to go seatbelts to auto. Now, if we look at back here, what the passengers see is, I think that that's not right. I think that the mobile phone sign, that should be off for the whole flight, obviously. But also they could start to use some of their laptops, and the seatbelts, I think that's going to stay on until we get to the top of climb. So we got that there too. And all of this is looking really great. We have got 132 miles before we get to our top of climb, and that should happen at 16:30 Zulu. It's 15:57 right now. So yeah, we've got about 30 minutes of gentle climb before we even get to our top of climb on this flight. Oh, look at that, 18,000 feet. The airplane is politely reminding you. Standard altimeter. And in this case, you push it in. In the older Airbuses, you pull it out, but you push it in. And that is a change in logic about how the autopilots work here, so that you push more things and pull more things in the same direction. And it's standard altimeter. So really, that's what's going to happen. I'm going to monitor the Dulles ATIS and see if there's anything updated. I'm going to keep track of where we are on the chart as we get ready to pass over Athens, Georgia, and all that. Oh, he's mentioning CPDLC. You actually, that is your CPDLC text message box right there, and you'll have options that you can click. It really is an absolutely amazing airplane. So modern aviation is incredibly cool, isn't it? So this airplane takes a little more to set up to land. What we'll do is I'm going to hit pause on the recording right now, and you can hit pause on the player if you're flying along with me. And what we'll do is we'll meet back here. Just start the player again when you get to 150 miles to top of descent. And you'll find that over on the cruise page, okay? So 150 miles to top of descent. Right now it says 300. So we got a little bit of time to waste. So give yourself a little bit of a break here. I will say see you at 150 miles from top of descent. And enjoy the ride. Well, we're almost to that top of descent here. A little bit late on getting the record button again, but welcome back into the cockpit. So I set 150 miles, a little bit late, phone rang, so we're at 126 miles from top of descent. Next thing that I'm going to do is I did forget a checklist, I think. So let's just go and see. Checklist, did I forget one? Yeah, I forgot the after takeoff checklist. Barrel reference was set to, so we're going to clear that out, and that checklist is complete. So that's good. 124 miles from top of descent. So the next thing is to come over here, and I'm just going to go and look and see. So today is the third day of the month. This is the latest METAR that we got, and our latest METAR that we got happened at 1452 Zulu. Well, let's see. The airplane says it's 1621. So that's a little bit out of date here. So let's come on down here, and let's hit update or print. And I'm going to hit update on that to see if we can't get a METAR. So we can get the latest weather and see what's happening here. It does take a few seconds on that. And it says that DIST is received. And this one now says the 13th. And this one happened at 1552 Zulu. It's 1622, so this is our latest METAR. And wow, look at that. No wind, 10 miles visibility, few clouds at 20,000 feet. It's 2 degrees. The altimeter is 3033. So all of that looks good. My guess is landing runways are still good. Our plan to land is still going to be just fine. So the next thing that I'll do is just kind of take a look over here. Everything's been good. We've been monitoring the flight over on the en route chart. I've also kept an eye on my fuel to see how things are going. And it looks like everything's going to be decent here. We are 112 miles. So now the next thing that I usually do is when I get to be about 100 miles from top of descent, I'm going to hit the approach tab and I'm going to go and put in the weather information. So it's really simple, just like we did before. Our winds at Dulles are 0. So left control button, 0, and enter. Our wind speed, left control button, 0, and enter. Winds are nothing at nothing. The outside air temperature is 2 degrees, left control, 2, and enter. And our altimeter is 3033. Click left control 3033 and enter. Okay, so there's the weather. Our minimums for the runway are the Barrow. We can get that over here on the terminal chart, and that's going to be the ILS or localizer, runway 1 Charlie, 1 center. And these are always at the bottom. They're in different places, and they're different categories of minimums and everything else. I usually will look for the one in the lower left-hand corner and see what best I can find. This one's easy. It's 486 feet. So the Barrow is going to be 486 feet and enter. And now that's good to go too. So that preparation has been set and we're great. I'll go back to cruise. And we're now 98. So now we're 100 miles from top of descent. Maybe in the real world, I'm doing that a little bit early. And you might notice that in the sim cockpit, I do things before the real pilots are going to do things. The reason being is if you're in a busy VAT sim event and you're doing all sorts of stuff, the sooner you can get a few tasks done, the better. Keep in mind, this cockpit is meant for 2 people. 2 people in this cockpit are supposed to be up here. Well, I'm 1 person and I'm having to deal with VATSIM. You know, talk to ATC, retune the radios, and plus I'm one of those silly live streamers and stuff, so I've also got to watch chat on the live stream and stuff. So you get really, really busy. So that's why it is that I tend to do things an awful lot earlier in some cases and somewhat out of sequence. Now, as we get closer, I will check the weather once again. 9 times out of 10, it's not a big change, unless a cold front's coming through or something like that. Let's go back here, and I wanted to have a little look and see. So over here, our seatbelt sign has been on for the whole flight. So just coming up here and going to auto did not turn it off at top of climb. So I should go ahead and do that. I'll leave no smoking on and all the other cabin signs off, but I really should have gone there. So that's an interesting thing to see. The auto button is not doing, I think, because let's see, do we have any turbulence? Is our wing flapping around? Nope, not flapping around out there, so it's not for turbulence reasons. So just for a little bit of immersion, that's the way I'm going to operate those. It could be that they need to fix the logic on those things. I don't know. Airplane's really pretty new. One of the things is, and should anybody possibly from iniBuilds watch, one of the things I really wish they would add is another tab down here or something, or a tab over here that says toggle jetway. Toggle the jetway, please. It would be so nice to be able to do that because you have to go outside of the application to get yourself a jetway and open the door. And it's an immersion thing, it's a flight sim thing, real pilots care about numbers, but there you go. That would be one of the nice things that I hope that they do. We now have a top of descent hockey stick. So hockey stick is a term I first heard reading a book about Airbuses from Captain Mike Ray. Captain Mike Ray did a series of awesome books for real-world pilots that simmers read too, and he called that a hockey stick. Maybe other people have done it too. That's the first time I heard that. Always like to credit Captain Mike Ray. If you're looking for some really awesome books about the big jets and stuff, his series is the Flight Simulator Check Ride Manual, and it's utem.com. I think University of Temecula is, I think, what he calls it, because there's where he lived. He's a retired United captain. I've had one of his books since 1994. Yes, I'm old, but it is a really good book. I bought it for my beloved 757, which is rapidly being retired out of existence. So let's see here. We know that we are 67 nautical miles away from top of descent. That should happen at 16:36 Zulu. It's now 16:27. About 10 minutes from our top of descent. So if you ever wondered how it is that the captain always knows to go and hit the all-call button, folks, from the flight deck, your captain speaking. It's time to talk about the descent, that kind of deal. There you go. Now you know how to say, we're going to be starting our descent into Dulles in about 10 minutes. Weather in Dulles is pretty good. Winds are calm. A few clouds here and there. Should be a really nice arrival. It's 2 degrees Celsius. The people that can do the conversion in their head drive me crazy, but I suspect that they've already done it, written it down on a piece of paper so they could say it's about 68 degrees Fahrenheit or whatever the conversion is. We'll be turning the seatbelt on about 15 minutes or so. So those of you that do have to go and use the facilities, please go ahead and do that. And by the way, you can go walk around the cabin in this in Flight Sim 2024, and this airplane is so complete that guess what? The toilets flush in this airplane. It has a flushing sound. We love airplanes, don't we? Love simulators. Okay, everything else is good. This is all looking fairly nice. Coming in here, one of the things that I'm going to do is I'm going to hit surveillance, and I'm going to hit the below button as we start our descent. And in fact, you could also come over here and hit the below button here if you want to as well. That way, we're looking at traffic below us as we descend. So that says, oh my gosh, there's an airplane there. We better not run into it. That kind of a deal. Okay, so that looks good. And again, iniBuilds, here or here, jetway. That's all you have to do. And have it toggle the jetway like pushback, just like as easy as Pushback Helper did it. That would be really, really nice. Some people, if you've got GSX is integrated into this in an amazing way. It really is pretty awesome. But, if you're not using GSX, it would be nice to be able to call the jetway from the panel without having to go to an outside application or something. Okay, what else can we do? I think we're almost pretty well done. We could go to the flight plan and review our arrival. It's going to be spot on. Now, the real pilots, they're going to check every number in this. They're going to look at everything. One of the things is, you may remember, we do have a discontinuity between UVAA and MUDO. So what we'll do is I've left the discontinuity in there for now. So that should be just fine. As we're approaching, one of the things I'm going to look at is the Cavalier arrival again, and I'm going to go and see what my what I call the bottom of the descent is. You've heard of top of climb, the bottom of the descent. So usually on VATSIM and in the real world, ATC is going to call up and say, Delta Flight 441, clear to descend at pilot's discretion on the Cavalier 6 arrival, Dulles landing north. What that tells me is I am cleared to the bottom of this descent to do this descent, unless they call me up later and tell me to do something else. At my discretion, that means I can descend when I want to, and at 9,000 feet is my lowest altitude that I get to go to. So when ATC calls me and says that, I come over to the autopilot and I put in that number. What is the bottom of the descent? What is the bottom of the star? In this case, it's 9,000 feet. That lets me know I'm cleared to go ahead and do that descent. And that way, if I want to descend I can descend when I want to now. Now, they may call you back and tell you to do something new, but when they say something along those lines, that says you're A-OK for this. Now then, I've noticed that this airplane is a little bit high on the descent. I think that may probably be pilot error and my failure to fully set things up, like descent winds. And over here on the init page, there's a bunch of things that in fuel that I did not init to. There's things in takeoff performance and general flight plan that I didn't do. So it could very well be that I'm making the mistake here about not doing the correct winds and everything else. Next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to do something really, really cool called fixes. And this really makes my life easy. I'm going to go to the flight plan, and I'm going to go to flight plan info, and I'm going to do fix info. And now what we're going to do is we're going to draw some rings around the airport and an extended center line. This really makes life nice. So first things first, let's go over here, and reference ID is going to be KATL 01 center. Enter. Okay? Now, the first thing I want to do is draw a center line out off the end of the runway. To do that, I'm going to go to the airport, and I'm going to go 01 center is right here. The opposite version of that, the reciprocal, is 191 degrees. So I'm going to go on the 191 degree radial. And there are some people that can do that math in their head. I'm lazy. I look at the exact number there. That's how I do that. Okay? And then I want to draw a 5-mile range ring around the runway, a radius. Now, before I go too much further, let's go back to performance. We're 14 miles from top of descent. We don't want to miss it. I usually am starting my descents in this airplane 10 miles. So what we're going to go ahead is we're going to come up here, and I'm going to make this a managed descent now. I'm going to let the airplane start to descend. Remember, I can descend when I want to. Okay? So that's going to take care of us there. Let's go back over here to flight plan, info, fix. Our first fix is good. Now we're going to do 2 more. My first fix the second one, same ID. It's going to be KATL 01 center, enter. But in this case, all I want is a 10-mile range ring around the airport. That's all. I'm going to do a third fix. Same deal. KATL 01 center. And now I want a 25-mile range ring around the airport. And that's it. Those are my fixes. Come back down here, go to performance, and we're on our descent. So the descent is happening. Now if you look over here in the map, first of all, we've got a little line here. It's not the right word. I call it the squiggly. This is the little line. You see this little line here? Looks like a heartbeat. That is when we're actually going to intercept our optimum descent path, so that it's a thrust idle descent and everything. So when we get to that point, you'll notice the little green dot here. We're 11 miles away from 11 to 12 miles away from intercepting our optimum descent path and everything else. So we're below it right now, but you see that number is slowly going down. This number, the little green dot's going to go down and set it. Look, there it is. And at that point, the squiggly goes away. So we've intercepted our descent path. You see a blue line right here. That blue dashed line, that is the extended center line for our runway for landing. Ooh, got a little bit of situational awareness here. I could see where our runway is, our path to the runway. Pretty cool. And if I go and I increase the range on my map, you can see there's that extended center line right there, and there's the 25-mile range ring, the 10-mile, and the 5-mile. Now, the real pilots are going to do a few other things. For example, on the approach chart here, your 25-mile range ring, you would actually use data from this over here. That's your minimum altitude, and this is going to give you obstacle clearance. I'm not doing that right now. That's the proper way to do that. I'm a busy sim pilot flying an airplane by myself in Microsoft Flight Simulator on VATSIM in cross the pond, cross the land, cross the ditch, cross the whatever, Frankfurt Friday. I just don't have time to do those sometimes. But there is that's why I always like to say, my videos here are not about the right way versus the wrong way. This is what works for me in the flight sim environment, and I hope that this is what works for you too. Okay, so we got that there. I'm going to bring my map range back on in, and that looks really good. It is now 1637 Zulu. So at about 1650 to 1655, there's going to be a new METAR. So as we're coming up on that part of the clock, I'm going to go over here and I'm going to hit the update button here just again and see if there is a new update for us. If we were on VATSIM and there was VATSIM ATC available, we would be getting the ADAs from VATSIM, which I think is really awesomely cool too, that we can get that information in here and more properly plan ahead for our arrival. Other stuff that we've got going on right now, it looks like we've got 8.9 tons of fuel. Let's go over here to the operational flight plan and see final reserve and alternate. Says 4.9 is what I put in there, is the fuel that I need to get for final reserve and alternate fuel. From what I understand, that's going to be these last three numbers: contingency, final reserve, alternate. And that's you want that fuel in the tank when you land. At least that's what I'd like. And we're doing pretty good here. Now you see my map's getting a little, congested. I'm going to make my map a little bit bigger now. This is going to be the 40-mile range, just so that I can see more good stuff. If we were coming into an area where there's mountains and stuff like that, like Innsbruck, coming over the Front Range of Colorado into Denver International, something along those lines. I'm also going to turn on terrain radar. Terrain radar is going to be over here. It's pretty flat where we're going here. And so I think that the real world, it's required that one pilot have terrain radar and one pilot have weather radar up at all times. I'm decluttering my map a little bit just to help me. Now you look over here, you can see, oh, look at this. Our speed is not where we want to be, and we're starting to get a little bit off. So maybe let's go ahead and do one little click of speed brake here. Sorry about the sniff. It's going to get cold again. I think there's more snow coming. But now you can see our little green dot is a little more centered here, and we're getting a little bit closer to that. And if you look outside, you'll see I've got just a little bit of speed brake out there. So I'm kind of monitoring the airplane on those sorts of things. And if I see I'm getting a little fast or a little high or something like that, I'm just going to tap the speed brakes a little bit. My own version of Tommy Lee Jones in Space Cowboys. Just go and tap on the brakes a little bit. Only not as dramatic, and I shouldn't do Tommy Lee Jones impressions. Everything else is looking good at this point. Let's see, it's 10 to 15 minutes before we get another update on weather. The co-pilot's going to do our checklist now for approach. So the approach checklist, the briefing has been done, although poorly. Seatbelts, I generally do seatbelts between around 25,000 feet. Airlines have different policies on when to do seatbelts. I start kicking them on around there. And I'm just going to go flat out and turn it on at the moment. That looks pretty good. And my guess is around seatbelt time is also the time that the captain would really like the passengers to start putting away their electronic devices for landing. So I'm going to go ahead and do mobiles over to auto. Now, I kind of think that the mobile light should be on. I think I yapped about this earlier. The mobile light should be on all the time. So what should be going off on this particular flight is seatbelts and devices. And mobile and no smoking should be on. Don't know. It's a level of immersion that it's probably a little bit too deep of a rabbit hole here. We're getting a little bit fast again. I'm going to go and throw my speed brake out one little click, just to keep my speed where it is we're supposed to be. And remember, on VATSIM, if it's a big VATSIM event, they're probably telling you to maintain a certain speed on your descent if there's an awful lot of airplanes coming in. But we're at 22,000 feet. Our next constraint is we need to be below 22,000 and above 14,000. So we're doing pretty good. Real pilots are also going to come over here to the nav aids page, and they're going to look and see what the airplane has dialed in. IOSZ. I'm going to come over to my terminal chart, hit the ILS button, and it says, look at that, IOSC. It's the same. 111.3 and 11 for the heading. 111.3 and 11 for the heading. Pilots are going to check that. Want to make sure the airplane is looking for the right ILS. So that's pretty groovy. Back to performance. 22 miles to the end of our descent. 19,000 feet, almost time to go and do standard altimeter. Now, if you click out of the checklist, I saw on some, sorry about the big bad cough, some videos showed it actually stayed the same. Let's go back to ATC comms. Our altimeter is 3033. Oh, it says received stations. Wonder if that means that we've gotten an update. So it's 3:15:52 Zulu. It's 16:43. Nope, it's the same one. But let's go down here and set the altimeter on the ISIS backup instrument, which is 3033. 3033. Good high pressure up and down the coast today for a nice smooth landing. And that's 17,000. So now in this case, instead of pushing it in, you pull it. 3033. And let's come over here. Pull the other one. 3033. And altimeters are checked and set. I'm going to come over. Let's see if it remembered our spot in the checklist. Nah, it doesn't look like it did. Approach. So, yeah. Oh, it did. Look at that. It did remember that we did the briefing. So the minimums have been set and the barrel reference has been now set. That checklist is complete. I really do. If you've got an electronic checklist system in your airplane, I really can't say enough of use the electronic checklist. Okay, so here we are here. We're going UVAA to MUD at 9,000 feet. We're moving pretty quick too. ATC probably says this is fast. So I'm going to pull the speed handle and I'm going to start reducing my speed. I think we're coming in a little fast for this. I'm going to throw a notch of speed brakes out and we're just going to go ahead and start slowing this down. It's a big plane. I'm also going to bring my map into 20 miles and it shows we're going to get to our descent pretty good. We're a little bit high on the descent. We'll catch up. Oh, we got a speed restriction up here of 250 knots at Gavler or something. Let's go ahead and do our 250 now and let's just slow down. We only got 10 miles. It's a big plane. I want to be at 250 knots. I'm sure the airplane would have done it itself, but I guess that makes me a control freak. Which I would imagine some pilots are. Oh, it was Cavalier. It was Cavalier. So 250 knots at Cavalier. And if you look very closely, you can see the little pink airplane right there. So we're going to blow off everything from Cavalier on, and we're going to UVAA. And if it's really busy, you might get ATC call and say, oh, no, we need you to slow down even more. So let's call it 210. ATC can speed you up and slow you down as they need you. So I'm going to go to 210 on that. Let's go and do that. I'm going to go ahead. It's a little early, but I'm going to turn on the LS buttons, landing system. Let's get those ready to go. And you can see ILS, and you can also verify that frequency again, 111.3. Having these two pieces, devices together like this, the actual airplane navigation system, and then your support device like this, together like that, holy moly, is that nice. Certainly a lot easier than looking over at the iPad that's over here. This is a really nicely designed cockpit. And we're coming down to 210, and we can go, and to help control the airplane and the speed, I'm going to do flaps 1. And I'm going to put my speed brakes away. I am not using the BTS system, brake to vacate system. It's cool. I use it when I have time, but I'm not using it on this one. Setting it up takes a little bit, and you get busy, and I don't want to miss some of the important things here. Received stations, 1552 Zulu. So we haven't gotten an automatic update on that yet. And so now we're about 210 knots. I'm going to now go ahead to the flight plan. I'm going to remove manual. I'm going to delete that. I'm going to delete the route discontinuity. And I'm just going to let the airplane do that. Now, ATC might tell you to do something else. I'm just going to do that to make it easy today. Hit flight plan. It puts us up at the top. And now we'll just let it do the flying for us. Our descent looks like it's pretty good. There's 10,000 feet. So we're going to come over here. I'm going to do landing lights, have the nose light ready to go for taxi, and do a 10,000 foot cabin call. Okay, that looks pretty good. This all looks good. Again, not maybe exactly the way it's going to happen in the real world. Every approach is different. But this is what's working for me, and it should work for you too. I've also taken control of my descent. So again, a bit early, but I'm going to activate my approach right now because I'm controlling my own speed, and when it's time to finally go to our landing speed, I want to just push my speed button and have it go to managed for me. So again, early, but it's taking care of the job right now. There's UVAA at 9,000 feet. ATC called and said you can go ahead and go down now to 7,000 feet. And I'm going to go and let the airplane descend there. So it's going to hold 9,000 to mud. I pushed it a little bit late. We went a little bit lower. It's 1649 Zulu. They've been updating the ATIS, so we'll try and we'll hit the ATIS button again at 1655 if we have time. It won't have changed that much. Again, the biggest changes that you're going to get in that kind of weather is if a cold front is blowing through or something like that. If you've got a big change in the weather like that, that's when that's going to happen. But I'm going to go ahead and let the airplane go down to about 7,000 feet at Mucker. I really am not good at some of the names of some of the waypoint names. I kind of butcher them bad. Coming in over here, this is all going to be good en route. So en route is still working, and I'm going to start zooming my en route chart down in now. This is going to help me. There's Stafford Regional Airport. So I'm going to go ahead and start moving that in a little bit tighter. That way I can use this as a moving ground chart for us. But now's a great time to come over to the terminal charts, look at the airport, and make your plans. So we're coming on runway 1 center. We'll probably get off here at Yankee 4. I think they'll taxi us on Yankee into Delta, probably over on Charlie. There is a real world Delta flight coming up from Atlanta. They're parking over here at Bravo 76. That's probably a little small for this airplane. We're going to go to Bravo 44. So going in and having a look-see at what what you're going to do when you're landing, this is the perfect time to do that. And there's our airplane over at Mud, and that looks pretty good. And this is our 10-mile range ring. So there's, no, we're coming up on the 25-mile range ring. The 20, yeah, so that's 20 miles. So about 210 knots is what I like to be there. Then as we approach 10 miles, 180, and 5 miles is our landing speed. ATC said to send and maintain 5,000 and said join the localizer for runway 1 center. So we don't have the localizer, but we're kind of coming in just fine. So all of that looks good. It is 16:52. So we're hoping for another little weather burp update there in just a second. Let's just be impatient and hit the update button and see what happens. I don't know if it auto updates yet or not. I haven't figured it out yet. So 16:52 there. It still says 15:52 there. So we'll go ahead and let it. We will show patience, which flight simmers don't do very much. Our descent's looking pretty good. Still letting it just go down to that 5,000 foot. We're still not picking up the ILS. Not a problem. We're 25 miles out. We're not going to pick it up until 15 to 20 miles anyway. But our descent looks pretty good. Passengers enjoying the view. And one of the things that's stunning, Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 was really pretty stunning from a visual look out the window standpoint. It's even better in Flight Sim 2024. I'm absolutely blown away at the scenery outside the cockpit. It's better and better. And some might argue, you know, in a real simulator, we care about the numbers in the plane. That's it. But if you're learning VFR flying, VFR flying is looking out the freaking window. So, you know, having the kind of landmarks that's going to be on a VFR chart, I think is important for flight simulators to have. I may be in a minority there. Okay, looking good. I'm still going to keep pushing this map in as much as it will let me. So that I have a nice ground chart. Still no sign of the ILS yet. Okay, 16:54. We'll give it to 16:55, and then we'll press the button one more time. If it hasn't shown up, I'm going to go ahead and while we're busy, I'm going to let it go down to 3,000 feet. Almost 16:55. It says 3:15:52. 4, 3, 2, 1. Update. Last chance for an update. It's cleared it. And 16:52. Okay, altimeter's 3032. That's one number off. I'm going to reset my altimeters. 3032. There we go. What's the wind? Winds are variable at 6 knots. The temperature is 4 instead of 2. We could update that a little bit, but they're so close. Let's not worry. We're getting in tight. So I'm going to hit the checklist menu, landing checklist. Cabin crew has been advised. Auto throttle is going to be on. Auto brakes are not set. Auto brakes are on. It's going to be auto brakes medium. Landing gear is not up yet, but auto brakes are done. Our runway condition is dry. There's a way to set the runway condition. If you look up here, you see where it says up here, landing 1 center, it's dry. If you look over here, there is a dial. It's above the auto brake button. If you change this, it will change the condition of the runway. You can dial it to snow, slush, sleet, freezing rain, all that other stuff, whatever. I don't know if freezing rain's in there or not. Okay, we're coming up on Moody. I've got localizer. So on the autopilot, let's go get the localizer working for us. Localizer's good, waiting for glide slope. 4,000 feet, it's going to go to 3. Hey, look at that. We now have glide slope as well. So let's go and switch, hit the approach button, let the airplane. Now, you don't hit those buttons until ATC says, join the localizer, clear to turn for the localizer, cleared for the ILS. But we're making our own rules on this one. We're at 4,300. I'm going to go ahead and dial my altitude to 4 and have it just stop me at 4 so we can get on the glide slope a little bit sooner. We are now 15 miles from the runway. So now let's bring the map in one last click. And we're coming up on 10 miles, usually about now. ATC is going to say, cleared for the ILS runway 1 center. Maintain 180 knots until 5 miles DME. That's usually what they'll say. So 180 knots until 5 miles DME. Let's go ahead and do flaps 2. Flaps are 2. There's a little thing here, and I call them the flap marks. These 2 little gold dashes here, I think that's your safe flap retract speed for your next level of flaps. So you don't have to wait until the F. You can do that a little bit sooner if you want to be a little more configured for your landing. Okay, one last click of that map should be good. And now we're going to start getting a little bit more visual outside. We don't have DME right now. We're about 10-mile finals. I say wheels. It's a big plane. We're busy. Gears going out. This shows you that your gear's going out and going down. And then it even senses that the doors that are supposed to close after you deploy the gear have locked into place. So that's really cool too. Now we've got both localizer and glide slope. The airplane's handling it for us. We're busy talking to ATC and they're saying do this, do that. I have not armed my spoilers. Ground spoilers are now armed. ECAM checklist is clear. The only thing on the landing checklist is flaps, and we're not going to do that till 5. Again, we're busy as hell here. If you get a chance, go and look outside. Holy moly, that is incredible. I mean, this is kind of, if we were on this flight right now, this is what it would look like. I mean, yeah, some of it is a little bit broken up, but it's better than it's ever been before. Visually stunning. It's amazing at night. It really is. And coming up on 5 miles DME. So this is when I'm going to sit back in my chair, gently put, if you've got rudder pedals, put your feet on your rudder pedals gently. If you got a goofy microphone like this, get it out of the way. Make sure that you can reach both your throttles and your flight stick. And here comes, so there's our 5 mile range ring around the center of the airplane and the range ring around the airplane. And you can see we're 5 miles. This is when we'll reach forward, 180 knots. So we're going to slow down to our final approach speed. And one last thing to do on the landing checklist. We're below those little flap marks. I'm going to go and do flaps full. Flaps are going full. That checklist is now complete too. Clear it. Remember, it's not just stationary wind. It's a little bit variable. And one of the last things that I'll do is remind myself that we're landing, that we're exiting, which way we're exiting. Exiting to the right. We're all set. If we're on VATSIM and I notice there's a ground control, as soon as they kick me over to tower, I'm going to put ground control in my standby frequency because they want you to switch to ground when you're busy. I don't have time for that. If you happen to notice, over here, there is the Udvar Hazy Smithsonian Airplane, Air and Space Museum right over there. Nicely modeled. They even have a taxiway when a new exhibit comes in to be a part of the museum. AP is off. Captain's got the airplane. Panic. Gently taking my hands, putting them over on the throttles. And barely going to move my controls here. Barely move it. I mean, it's hard to figure how much I'm just not moving it at all. If you've ever come into Dulles, we're coming up. Well, there, so the runway, the parallel that's before our landing runway is just ahead of us. That's runway 30. There's an incredibly cool circle to land for that runway when the wind is really, really nasty.
100 above. 200. Minimum.
Landing. Still getting used to this airplane. It's not like flying the little A319,
50,
20, and 21.
40, 30, 20, retard, 10.
Pulled back a little bit too much. Always hunting for butter. Speed brakes. Thrust reversers.
Auto brake off.
Manual braking. Exiting, exiting, exiting. Speed brakes down. I usually get the flaps out of the way. Oh, look at that. There's a couple of MD-11s over there at FedEx Land. Sorry about that sniff. Maybe a cold's coming on. I'm going to do landing lights off, strobe lights off, and we're going to make our turnaround over here. One of the things I've got is I've got the hat switch that's hidden underneath the little thumb rest on the side stick, and that way I can go and look left or right really easy without taking my hands off any of the controls, and that's really pretty nice to have. Okay, you can see that that chart didn't work, so let's go over and grab the airport chart really fast. So it's there's probably a problem with those servers there. So zoom in a little bit. We're going over here to taxiway Delta. Let's go ahead and hit the master switch and the APU to come on in. I'm also going to come up here and turn off the devices light so that passengers can use their cell phones. And looking over there, there is the main terminal. So there's the main terminal. Our terminal is there, and it's on the other side. So again, a lot more really cool. Just be as aware as you can of your situation, where you are. And as we keep coming around, we're going to get Delta. And all of that looks good. Over here, we can hit the checklist menu, after landing checklist. Ground spoilers disarmed, flaps are 0, APU is started, checklist is complete. Checklist complete. There we go. This, I've noticed, resets the flight management computers and everything. So the cool thing is we're all set and ready for another flight. You can do what I call in the live stream continuing service, and we're starting to do a lot of those when we put a couple of ATSIM events together. And so we'll take off from one airport, go to another airport, and then leave the airplane on the network, on the ground, redo a flight plan, and go and do something else. Go to another place that airline might go to. And it's even more cool if you're able to figure out where the real airplane would go. You know, if you're shadowing a real world flight. Okay, so it doesn't look like this is going to work too well for us. Oh, there it is, finally, yay. Okay, so we were going to go to Bravo 42. There's Bravo 42. So we'll look over here. And that's got to be it. It comes outside of that little building. There's another gate. Oh, did I say 42 or 48? I don't think I remembered. We want the one of the gates with a double jetway. That looks like a good one. Let's grab that. We just got a gate change. Gentle turn in as we're turning in and facing the ground crew. Nose lights off. We don't want to blind them. So we got Bravo 44. But I think this is a double jetway for us, because they usually will attach two, although I only think that one works. Now this case, I'm going to come outside the airplane and I'm going to guide myself in. We don't really have any good gate guidance going in yet. So without any good gate guidance going in, it's tough to park. And you want to move the airplane far enough forward so that the tail of the airplane clears the little roadway there. This is a Payware airport for flight beam. Doesn't quite do it, but that's the end. That's where we're supposed to go. So parking brakes are going on. Up here, we've got the APU, and the APU bleed just went on. Engine number 1, engine number 2. Then we'll come on up here. We're going to go to surveillance. I'm going to go to see. We should have turned Terra off the runway. So traffic is off, and we're going to stop squawking, so that's good too. Engines are coming down. Now you turn off the fuel pumps in the opposite direction. Those aren't fuel pumps. My view changed, sorry. In the opposite direction that you turn them on. While you're here, come on up here, and we're going to turn off the ADIRS system. And that looks pretty good. We're going to come down here now, and all of our lights are good. I'm going to go and do seat belts. Engines are off. I think the beacon should have gone off first. Whoops. APU is available. That's good news. We'll come to the ground tab. I'd like chocks and a GPU. We can also, with this, open these doors. So there goes our cargo doors opening up. But again, it'd be great if we had a jetway button in there so that you don't have to go and maybe hit jetway here. And in some airports, sometimes you're parking. I've noticed that the jetway is going to go for the L2 door. So I think at real airports, they're going to use the L1. They're L1 for first class passengers, and L2 stand for left 2 from front to back. The other jetway would come over there for those. In this case, I think it only handles one jetway for the flight. And that looks like it. The only other thing that we might do is come on in here and just look at FOB, stands for fuel on board. 7.4 is what we were supposed to have to land. Over here, we were supposed to have 4.9. I boarded a little bit more fuel, but we did pretty good. So the fuel on this airplane is really, really pretty good. And that's it. What a great flight. What a great airplane. As I always like to say about the cold and dark videos that I'm doing on YouTube, I never want to make this about this is the right way versus the wrong way. This is what works for me, especially as a flight simmer, being a single person in a two-person cockpit. This is what's working for me. There is still an awful lot to learn about this amazing airplane. And I got to tell you, I'm going to be diving into some FCOMs, flight manuals, real-world flight manuals as I can to learn more and more about this airplane. And as I learn more, I will be adding more to what I do in the sim cockpit. Would like to invite you to join us Tuesday through Sunday at 1900 Zulu. That's for the live stream over on Twitch, and now also live streaming here on YouTube. I still have a few more things that I've got to put together. And if you really like what I'm doing here, please think about coming and joining us over on Patreon. It is my daily pre-flight video that I do every day, first thing in the morning, with a little bit of flight weather and everything else, and certainly would invite you to come over and maybe visit us there. At this point, I'm going to say a very, very big thank you, and I should say a big thank you for people over on Patreon too. So a shout out and a thank you to the secret agents, special agents, and double O's. And if you're supporting here on YouTube, all the usual like, subscribe, share stuff. I'm not going to make you listen to that. What a great airplane this is. I really hope that you like this flight, and I hope it makes your flight sim experience a little bit better. Can't wait to see you in the friendly sim skies. In the meantime, as always, please stay healthy, stay safe. I'll see you in the friendly sim skies real soon.